And again, we welcome you to today's webinar, AWS Services Overview and Quarterly Update. We're very excited that our presenter today is Jeff Barr. Jeff is the Chief Evangelist at AWS. And today with us, we also have a great team of moderators who are ready to test their typing skills by responding to as many questions as you have. Wayne and David. Again, they'll be engaging with you and answering any questions you have, so feel free to submit them at any time. Jeff, welcome. The floor is now yours.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend. I really appreciate you doing that. We're going to be flying through the services at very, very high speed today. Think of this as the overview or the tasting menu or the samples or the survey course. We're not going to have time to go into any depth. We do have a number of other webinars. There's plenty of other product information online available to you. We're going to fly through things at approximately Mach 2, so fasten your seatbelt and hang on for the ride as we go through the AWS services. In the last 10 years, we've made about 3,149 additions to AWS. This ranges from launches of brand new services to additional regions, additional services in new regions, new features for existing services, and also AWS price reductions. So a lot has happened in the course of just a decade. This is the pace of innovation over the last 4 years. As you can see, we've climbed from 61 major announcements in 2010 up to over 1,000 in 2016. So far this year, we have launched a total of 236 new features and or services. So the pace of innovation continues to grow. This is the AWS platform at a glance, and admittedly this is quite the eye testing chart. What I find interesting as I look at this, if you look down at the bottom left, if you look into core services, that blue area, and you see storage, and then you see that word object in tiny print, that was all of AWS in 2006, just a little bit over a decade ago. We launched S3 as object storage in a single AWS region. So what you're seeing here is a decade's worth of growth and progress and AWS innovation. So it's a really exciting time for us. I think it's a really exciting time also to be a customer and a consumer and to be able to take all these different services and to put them to use in your own application and your own business. One thing to keep in mind as we go through all of these different services and the features and services, remember that cloud computing is, in my estimation, effectively equal parts business model and technology. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about pricing except in a few instances where I think it's really, really important. But do keep in mind that the business model, the way in which you obtain and pay for the services that you consume is just as important as the technologies that you have. Would like to remind you that there is an AWS free tier that has two different components. For some of the services, you get an initial allocation where you can use various levels of the different services for a 12-month period after you start using them. Other services have effectively a continuing allocation of service that you can consume in perpetuity out into the future. So many of our customers will start by experimenting with the free tier and sometimes even build fairly generous applications that are able to run fully within that free tier. Great for learning, great for experimentation. Let's start out with compute as an area of innovation. We started with EC2 back in 2006, and then service by service, feature by feature, it's grown into this broad collection of services. EC2 gives you virtual servers in the cloud, resizable compute capacity. You can obtain and boot new servers in a matter of minutes. When we launched EC2, there was a single instance type. Today we have over 30 different instance types that vary in the speed and power of the number of CPUs, the amount of local memory, the amount of local storage. Some of them are optimized for compute, others are optimized for I/O performance. We give you just a broad collection so you can choose the instance types that fit your applications. You can easily scale as your requirements change. And you pay for what you use. You pay on an hourly basis for EC2 instances. An important aspect of compute is auto-scaling. This allows you to add or remove EC2 instances from your architecture based on metrics such as the amount of CPU load or network traffic or health checks. This allows you to scale up and down in response to changing load. The health checks allow you to, if instances fail due to an application failure or an instance failure, take those failing instances out of the service, replace those with healthy instances. Auto-scaling integrates with elastic load balancers so that it only routes traffic to healthy instances, and that as new instances are added to the collection, those are automatically plugged into the elastic load balancer. So we talked about EC2 and explicitly. Lambda is a different model, which people are calling serverless computing. The idea of serverless computing, you simply don't think about setting up or running servers. You simply provide the code to Lambda, and you don't have to worry about managing any infrastructure. You have the ability to run code in response to various triggers, such as an upload to S3, an update to a DynamoDB table, data arriving on a Kinesis stream, or a request arriving via the API gateway. Lambda automatically scales to add enough resources to deal with whatever level of incoming requests you might have. And you pay for your usage in 100 millisecond increments that are called gigabyte seconds. As part of that free tier that I mentioned earlier, you get 1 million free requests and you get 400,000 gigabyte seconds of time available to you per month at no charge. So we went from an hourly model down to a 100 millisecond model. You can see a little bit of evolution of the AWS model right there. AWS Batch allows you to run batch jobs. So you can easily create a batch cluster. You can then set that up. The cluster can scale up and down in responses to changes in load. You can submit batch jobs. You can create multiple queues that are fronting different kinds of instances that are optimized for different kinds of applications, whether by compute power or by the amount of memory. Batch is integrated with different parts of the AWS platform, available to you at no charge. EC2 Container Service allows you to run and manage Docker containers. So this is a container management service that is built on top of EC2. That's actually a really important architectural model here. You'll see that many times EC2 is now a base technology and that additional services are now layered atop EC2. This means that everything we've learned about building and running EC2 at scale is taken into account in that service. It also means everything that you know about using EC2 remains applicable as you start to use the higher level services. The container service has a built-in scheduler that apportions containers to instances. You can use that built-in scheduler, you can write your own, or you can use a third-party scheduler. You can take advantage of services like Elastic Load Balancing and Elastic Block Store, and once again, available to you at no additional charge. You pay simply for the EC2 resources that you consume. Closely aligned with the container service is the container registry. The container registry lets you store and retrieve Docker images. And so instead of having to build and then run your own container repository, you simply use the EC2 container registry. You pay only for the amount of data that you store and the amount of data that's transferred out of that repository back to your systems. Elastic Beanstalk is designed to help you run and manage web apps. This is perfect if you simply want to upload your code and have the service manage the rest. It supports multiple environments: Docker, Java, .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Go. And it handles a lot of the behind-the-scenes infrastructure work: deploying instances, setting up load balancing, auto-scaling, monitoring of the health of your application. One really neat thing about Elastic Beanstalk is that even though it's fully managing all of those different aspects of the application for you, you still have the ability to lift the hood and exercise full control over those AWS resources should you see the need to do that. Let's pause for a little bit and put our first poll question out. So we'd like to know which compute service sounds the most interesting to you that you would like to try next. So go ahead and let me know. Looks like we've got an early lead for Lambda. In fact, Lambda is quite there in the lead. Coming up next, we've got the container service. And let me go ahead and share those with you. Here we go. We've still got, looks like we've got basically 2-to-1 for Lambda over container service. I'm going to go ahead and put those on the screen for a bit. Excellent. Got a few more votes coming in. We'll wait a few more seconds here. So we've got Lambda, container service, and after that, we've got both Elastic Beanstalk and then auto-scaling. So great to hear that you're all looking forward to using latest generation technologies. Excellent. Thank you so much for that feedback. That is super helpful to know as we present and as we plan our future webinars. Let's move from compute to storage. As I told you earlier, we launched our storage back in 2006. We simply had S3. And over the years, in response to customer requests and in response to our own roadmaps and the feedback we get from customers and the customer use cases, that initial object storage has effectively speciated for you. Most of our customer applications will end up using 2 or more of these different storage services. So let's dive in and take a closer look at them. S3, short for the simple storage service. Again, first service designed to be what the name says, a very, very simple storage service designed to be durable and massively scalable. Store and retrieve any amount of data. S3 is designed for 11 nines of data durability. Our customers use it as a bulk repository for their data. They also use it as what is called a data lake, where they put many, many different sizes and shapes and types of data in S3. And then rather than the old school model of ETL, the edit, transform, load model, they simply use different AWS services to analyze that data in place within the S3 powered data lake. S3 is designed to be very scalable, to be reliable, to be secure. You can easily encrypt your data. You pay for what you use, starting at 2.6 cents per gigabyte per month of data that you store. If you have less frequently accessed data, you might want to take a look at Glacier. Glacier is designed for archive storage in the cloud at very, very low cost. The idea is you're going to store things, you're going to need to retrieve them very infrequently. Many things stored in Glacier are effectively never retrieved, but designed to be secure, durable, no limit to how much you store. Again, pay for what you use. Glacier pricing starts at less than 1/2 of a penny per gigabyte per month. When you're using EC2 instances, you're going to need some block storage, and that is the province of EBS, Elastic Block Store. This is persistent off-instance storage that can be based either on SSD or magnetic disk. With EBS, you have the ability to create snapshots to S3. You can easily encrypt your EBS volumes. You also have the ability to do what's called provisioned IOPS, where you can turn the dial and you can dial in the amount of performance you need. IOPS is short for input-output operations per second. So as your need for additional performance arises, you simply turn that dial up and you add additional performance to your existing EBS volumes. You can change the amount of provisioned IOPS, and you can even switch from magnetic disk to SSD on an existing volume while your applications continue to run and to process data. The storage gateway is a way to connect your existing on-premises IT environment with cloud storage, basically building a hybrid cloud storage model. We give you a virtual machine that you run on your on-premises data center, and you copy files to that virtual volume you create. Those files are then copied up to the cloud and plugged into S3, a combination of S3, EBS, and Glacier based on how you configure. One of the questions that comes up often when I speak to new customers, they say, we have a lot of existing data already on premises in our data center. How might I get that data up to the cloud? So we have a lot of different options that we'll review for you right now. You can use Direct Connect to create a dedicated virtual network from your location to ours. You can use the import-export disk service, where you ship your physical disks to AWS, and we'll transfer the data from those disks over to S3. Some newer options include the AWS Snowball. The Snowball is a physical appliance. You order snowballs, we ship those to you. You copy your data to them, you ship them back, and we then copy the data again to S3. If you have massive amounts of data, we offer something called the AWS Snowmobile. This is a 40-foot long ruggedized shipping container pulled by a truck, and each snowmobile can transfer up to 100 petabytes of data. We also have a real-time service called Kinesis Firehose, where you can capture high-volume streams of incoming data and automatically load those into S3. So a wide variety of options. Each of them has different applicability to different use cases. And we're always happy to give you direction, advice, and guidance on where and when you might want to use these different services. If you're building web applications, you probably want to make sure that your content is accessible with low latency all around the world. The CloudFront service is our global content delivery network. Low latency, high transfer speed, no upfront commitment. There are currently 52 CloudFront edge locations and growing. You can serve up both static and dynamic content through CloudFront. It has a number of advanced CDN features, including support for SSL, the ability to restrict content geographically, and to mark content privately and to share it to a subset of your audience. Let's take another quick poll, and this time we'd like to know, which storage service would you like to try next? Looks like CloudFront is taking the early lead, but okay, we've got CloudFront and then Storage Gateway. S3 and Glacier kind of neck and neck for third place. More seconds here. Really appreciate all this feedback. This is awesome. And it looks like our winner is CloudFront, followed by Storage Gateway, and then S3. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that participation. Let's go to a higher level of storage. Let's talk about databases. Again, to me, this is a really interesting topic because I've been here at Amazon for almost 15 years. I've been able to watch the evolution of these different services. In the earliest days, our customers that needed a relational database simply launched an EC2 instance, and they installed and ran their own copy of MySQL. Back in 2009, we introduced Amazon RDS, the relational database service, for MySQL, and we've been enhancing that ever since. We've also, as you can see, we've considerably broadened our offering in the database world. Relational database service makes it super easy to run any one of 6 different popular database engines. Capacity is resizable. It takes care of all the time-consuming administration. So backups, fault tolerance, recovery, switching from a primary to a secondary, creation of backups, patching to install the latest versions of the database engines. All those different things are taken care of automatically and transparently for you by RDS. So it's a managed relational database service. Many applications are now looking to use a NoSQL-based database model, and we have something called DynamoDB, which is our fully managed NoSQL database service. DynamoDB is capable of handling any amount of data. It gives you single-digit millisecond latency for your reads and your writes. It's all backed by SSD storage, making it very durable and highly available. And a new DynamoDB feature we just announced is called the DynamoDB Accelerator, or DAX. DAX is a fully managed in-memory cache for DynamoDB designed to accelerate read requests. A lot of applications benefit from an in-memory caching layer, and ElastiCache allows you to do that on AWS. This is a managed cache service. It supports both Memcache and Redis. You can resize your cache cluster through the API or through the console. You can monitor it through CloudWatch and through SNS. Amazon Redshift is our data warehouse. This is a fully managed SQL-based data warehouse. It's massively parallel behind the scenes, and our customers drive it up to petabyte scale. Cost effective at a price that goes as low as $1,000 per terabyte per year. You can create a Redshift cluster and be online and functional in a matter of minutes. It does continuous backup to S3. And we just launched a new feature for Redshift that's called Redshift Spectrum. The idea is you can run the same complex SQL queries you would run against data stored in your Redshift data warehouse. You can run those queries against data in place in your data lake in Amazon S3. This feature, Redshift Spectrum, is designed to scale up to exabytes worth of data. So the analytic power that you already have with Redshift, you can now use to query data in S3. The same SQL that you're already using, if you've got queries, if you're running any number of business intelligence tools that connect to Redshift, they can query that same data directly in S3. No loading, no indexing, no prep is needed, and it runs at exabyte scale. To me, a very cool aspect of this is it separates the compute and the storage aspect. When you issue a query behind the scenes, thousands of instances will be brought into play in parallel if necessary to process your query. And in addition to your existing Redshift cluster, you simply pay for the queries that you run based on the amount of data transfer that those queries transfer from S3 back to Redshift Spectrum. So we talked about Amazon RDS as one way to solve the relational database challenge in the cloud. Amazon Aurora is a high-performance relational database that was built for the cloud, designed to be very highly available, durable, and scalable. You can create Aurora databases that are up to 64 terabytes in size with up to 15 read replicas, secure with a variety of encryption options, and both compatible with both MySQL and PostgreSQL. Well, I should remind you once again, we are glossing over and running at very high speed over some very complex, very sophisticated services here. We have webinars and documentation and detailed websites on each and every one of these services. So I've hand-waved past an incredible amount of really interesting services here in the interest of time and giving you just this very, very brief overview of what we have. So let's go for our next poll question, and let's talk about the database service that you would like to try next. All right, we've got Aurora and then Redshift and DynamoDB. The answer is coming in nicely here. Looks like we're just about a tie for DynamoDB and Aurora. Let's go ahead and broadcast those here. Happy to share them. Okay, so I'm going to call it as DynamoDB, Aurora, and then Redshift. Excellent. Thank you. Let's turn our focus to networking and the various ways that we can connect all of these different services together and to use them as a unit. The virtual private cloud allows you to create your own user-defined virtual network. So in the same way that within your own data center, you would set up a network, you would assign a set of IP addresses, you might partition that network into 2 or more subnets and perhaps create some routing rules and some access control lists between those subnets. You can do all of that in software via the console and via APIs using the virtual private cloud. So you get full control of your networking architecture. You can also create a VPN connection from your existing data center to your virtual private cloud. You can run that connection. You can build one overlay network that is effectively your existing data center and your virtual private cloud resources. You can peer 2 or more VPCs together to create even more sophisticated network architectures. As you start to hear about these more sophisticated systems and architectures and ways to put things together, you should know also that we have a group of solution architects here that are highly skilled in the art of designing and helping you to architect the different AWS services and to put them together in ways that you can actually reach and achieve all these benefits that I've been talking about today. I talked a little bit about auto-scaling earlier, and the close relative of auto-scaling is elastic load balancing. So auto-scaling makes sure that we have enough EC2 instances present to deal with the amount of incoming traffic. Elastic load balancing then says, let's make sure that we evenly and fairly distribute that traffic across all these instances. So ELB takes the incoming requests, HTTP, HTTPS, and TCP requests, load balances those across a set of EC2 instances. It detects and removes any instances that are failing. And then in conjunction with auto-scaling, it's going to dynamically grow and shrink that auto-scaling group based on incoming traffic. Route 53 is our domain name service and also supports domain name registration. Route 53 answers DNS queries with very, very low latency using a global network of DNS servers. Earlier, I talked about CloudFront and its current set of 52 different edge locations. Those edge locations are also there in support of Route 53. Route 53 also gives you services like latency-based routing so that when a request arrives at an edge location, it will use its own internal metrics for network speed and traffic to route those requests to the closest AWS endpoint. You can build global AWS applications that have a presence in multiple regions and then use this latency-based routing to get the traffic to the closest and therefore usually the most rapidly responding endpoint. You can also register domain names through Route 53. I talked a little bit about Direct Connect earlier. The idea here is you can create a dedicated network connection to AWS. This is going to reduce your bandwidth costs. If you have particular security needs and you don't want to have your corporate data running across the public internet, you can use Direct Connect to create this private network connection. And there's a range of speeds you can get on a per port basis ranging from 50 megabits per second up to 10 gigabits per second. We also let you aggregate multiple ports together to create one connection with even higher bandwidth. Stepping up a notch, we have a number of different application services. Let's take a brief look at those. Many applications need to send bulk or transactional email. And instead of having to set up your own set of servers and to deal with a number of different regulations for proper send, email service is going to handle a lot of that for you. It's going to track successful and unsuccessful sends. It's going to give you metrics that allow you to fine-tune your email sending strategy to keep your success rate and your deliverability high on your email. Simple notification service is for sending push notifications. You publish messages from your application, and those are then delivered automatically to a number of subscribers or to other applications. And you can also push messages to mobile devices. Simple queue service, again, one of the original service of low-level building block that is used to build distributed systems, designed to be very highly available and durable as a scalable message queue. And you pay for what you use on a message-by-message basis. The API Gateway helps you to build, publish, and manage APIs for your own applications. It works once again in conjunction with CloudFront to give you that worldwide set of edge locations. The gateway handles traffic throttling. It handles caching of responses from the underlying service that is implementing the API. Allows you to monitor the API activity. You can very easily connect your API endpoints up to Lambda functions. There are versioning features within the API gateway, so you can have, for example, a a beta test set of APIs, and then a production set of APIs, and is a fully managed service. Cloud Search is a managed search service. It lets you plug in highly scalable search functionality into your applications. Scales automatically, and we handle all the provisioning, the data partitioning, and the patching behind the scenes. Elastic Transcoder is for working with media files. The main job of Elastic Transcoder is to convert media files, audio or video media files, between different formats. Scalable, plugs directly into S3 and to CloudFront. The simple workflow service helps you as you build applications that start to have more and more moving parts. As you start to build these kind of applications, you realize that there's a number of different processing steps. You might need to make decisions as you process through a workflow. You need to track some state. You probably need to deal with errors and retries. And the simple workflow service lets you design these workflows and then bring them to life. Okay, so now for our next poll, let me know which application service you would like to try next. Lots and lots of good choices here. Okay, looks like the API Gateway has a pretty strong lead and followed up by Simple Workflow Service and Cloud Search. Excellent. Thanks once again. This is super helpful to hear. Now let's turn our focus to administration and security. These are the things that when new customers are investigating the cloud and they say, I'm very, very curious about the cloud. I would love to put it to use, but I really need to understand a bit more about the various ways that it lets me build highly secure applications. These are the kind of things that they start to ask about. Now, I 100% for sure can't give you a good overview even of all the different security features of AWS in just a few minutes, but let's just kind of take a look at a few of the individual services. The directory service lets you manage directories in the cloud. It's compatible with Active Directory. You can either run a standalone directory in the cloud, or you can integrate it and federate it with your existing service. This then plugs into other AWS offerings such as WorkDocs, IAM, and Workspaces, all of which I'll describe in just a few minutes. Once you have the directory service set up, you can do things like single sign-on, and you can do policy management for your EC2 instances and the applications running on those instances. Identity and access management, or IAM, this is an essential core part of AWS. This is the key, as you can see from the icon there. This is the key to controlling access to various parts of AWS. When you start to use IAM, you create users, you can put those users into groups. The users can have roles, and the roles reference policies. The policies are explicit lists that allow access to various services. At the API level, you can create policies that's API functions or to resources. And so you are able to access and grant permissions on a fine-grained basis. As our customers start to build more complex applications with AWS, they want to make sure that they're using AWS to their best advantage. The Trust Advisor is the cloud optimization expert tool. It scans through the resources running in your AWS account. It looks for ways to optimize costs, to improve performance, to add additional fault tolerance, and to better your security profile. With the Trust Advisor, you get a set of basic checks for free. And if you subscribe to our business level of support, then all the checks are unlocked and available to you. The Trust Advisor gives you a series of reports online with very, very specific recommendations for how to take action in each of those areas that I just mentioned. CloudTrail is a tool that records calls to all of the different AWS APIs across one or more accounts. It gives you a set of log files that are stored in S3. You can use this to do security analysis. You can track changes to resources. You can run compliance audits. You can arrange to get notifications every time a new log file has been delivered. And it runs across a broad spectrum of AWS services. I've mentioned briefly that a number of different services support encryption. The common factor is that those services make reference to the key management service, or KMS, that manages the creation and controls the encryption keys. So services like EBS and S3 and RDS and the others you see on your screen, each of these plug into KMS, and when you create an encrypted object from one of those services, you can reference an existing key managed by KMS, or you can create a new key specifically for that particular service or that particular type of data. CloudWatch is a fundamental tool that helps you with your resource and your application monitoring. It gives you visibility into how you're using different resources. It shows your performance in the form of metrics and log files. For various different metrics that are published to CloudWatch, you can set thresholds where you'll get notifications. Maybe you would want to know if you are using more than a particular amount of S3 storage, or you'd like to know if you have a high CPU load on a particular EC2 instance. You can set CloudWatch alarms for any of those situations or for hundreds of others. You can then use those to trigger actions. In the case of the high load on the EC2 instance, you can trigger auto scaling. You can run Lambda functions. There are CloudWatch logs where you can see what's happening inside your system. And you can also publish your own measurements with what are called CloudWatch custom metrics. Again, in the auditing and configuration tracking arena, we offer a service called AWS Config. So AWS Config tracks the configurations and the inventory of the different AWS resources you're using. Once you've enabled config, every time you add or remove a resource, config is going to take note of that. It's going to give you a timeline-based view of these different changes. You're going to get notification on resource changes, and you can scroll back on that timeline. If you can't remember exactly when you launched an instance, or when you made a change to a security group, or when you added a new EBS volume, you can look back in that config timeline, and you can see exactly when all those changes took place. A number of our members of our partner network have also built solutions that build upon and add even more power to the data collected by AWS Config. Within a larger organization, you might want to make a set of different applications available to your users. The AWS Service Catalog allows you to create these catalogs and then approve different services for different users and groups and categories of users inside your organization. Within the catalog, you can enumerate virtual machine images, servers, applications, databases, and even application architectures in the form of templates. So this way you can have a common repository of deployed services, and you can establish corporate standards. You can maintain compliance by controlling at a fine grain of detail exactly what your users are allowed to access and to run. The Cloud HSM is a hardware-based key storage module. Some of our customers need to store their encryption keys in a hardware device in order to achieve regulatory compliance. So this is a dedicated piece of hardware in the cloud. You get to control the keys and the cryptographic operations that those keys are in. The Cloud HSM is validated to various government standards for key management. You can also set this up to sync to your on-premises hardware security module. And then multiple AWS services, including Redshift and RDS, are able to make use of keys stored in the Cloud HSM. Customers often use SSL certificates to authenticate themselves from application to application. The certificate manager helps you to provision, manage, and deploy these certificates You can use them to protect and secure your websites. You can get new certificates. You can renew existing certificates easily. You can deploy them out to Elastic Load Balancing and to CloudFront. And this is also a fully managed service. Let's talk a bit about developer tools and the kind of tools that are available to help your developers architect and build applications. Code Deploy helps you to automate your code deployment. It can deploy software both to EC2 instances and to on-premises instances. You can do rolling updates. You can update a subset of your instances and perform health checks as you're rolling them out to make sure that the updates are running as expected. Agnostic with respect to both platform and language, and easy to plug into your existing tool chains. Modern customers are making use of a continuous delivery process, and our code pipeline service helps them to do that. The idea of code pipeline is you get automated application delivery, and you can very, very quickly go from writing code to testing code to deploying to a subset of staging servers to testing there to rolling out to production. You model each of those different stages in code pipeline. You can have both automated and manual approval processes along the way, go through the automated build, automated tests, and then plug this into your existing tools and existing systems to very, very quickly get from writing code to having safely and thoroughly tested code deployed to production. Code commit lets you store code in private Git repositories, so you don't need to run and scale your own source code control servers. Automatically encrypts files. Like every AWS service, it's scalable, it's redundant, it's durable. Supports all different file types and sizes. And all of your existing Git tools and your Git workflows will continue to work with code commit. OpsWorks allows you to automate your operations using Chef. Things like code deployment, software configurations, package installations, database setups, and so forth are all the province of OpsWorks. To use OpsWorks, you model all the different layers of your application as a set of stacks. You can then use existing Chef recipes and cookbooks to load up those stacks. You can run this both on Linux and on Windows. And OpsWorks is able to work both with EC2 instances running on AWS and existing infrastructure you have running on premises. CloudFormation, while I try not to play favorites, I think CloudFormation is one of our cooler services. The idea here is that you can create and manage resources using templates. These templates are basically JSON formatted text files. The template defines all of the different AWS resources that you want to provision. And once you have that template set up, the template can be parameterized at the point when you instantiate that template. AWS will prompt you to fill in these runtime parameters. And AWS will then create all of the resources as specified in the template. We'll connect them up as desired. We'll make sure that each resource in turn is created and fully initialized before moving on to the next one, and automatically takes care of all the dependencies between the different resources as created. You can create these templates in a text editor, or you can use the CloudFormation designer to create them in drag and drop fashion. What's really neat about this is once you've built these templates, you can repeatedly deploy the same set of AWS resources and know that each time that you launch a stack from a template, you're going to get the same configuration as the end result. If you're migrating from on-premises to AWS, one of the questions that comes up all the time is, I'd love to migrate, but I don't have a full understanding of what's already running on-premises. The Application Discovery Service helps you to plan these projects. It identifies the applications that are running. It helps to figure out the dependencies. It captures a performance profile. It collects data from your existing servers. It scopes out your storage. It looks at networking to understand how the different internal services are connecting to each other. All these findings are stored And then the discovery service gives you the ability to explore and visualize what it has discovered. And once you have this information in hand, you are then fully informed and able to make some high-quality decisions about the order in which you'd like to start migrating your applications and your services to AWS. All right, let's take a quick breath and let me know which developer or management service you'd like to try next. All right, looks like we've got CloudFormation coming up first, followed by application discovery. And code pipeline after that. Share that. Wow, okay, overwhelming support here for CloudFormation, great to hear. All right, that's excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. We've talked about processing data, storing data, putting data in the database. The analytics side to me is all about getting additional value from that data. And there's a lot of different parts of AWS that help you to do that. EMR is a managed framework for big data processing. This lets you analyze data at scale using many, many different open source big data frameworks, things like Apache Spark, Hadoop, HBase, and Presto. You can create elastic EMR clusters that are sized based on the amount of data that you have. You can use them either for batch or for real-time processing. You can create long-running clusters, or you can launch clusters, use them for a single job, and then shut them down. And then EMR also integrates with an EC2 feature called spot instances, where you can make bids for compute power and get compute power as economically as possible. Amazon Athena is a relatively new service. This is another interactive query service for data stored in S3. It's serverless, there's no infrastructure, there's no admin. This is built on Apache Presto and allows you to run standard SQL across files stored in S3. Like Spectrum that I told you about earlier, it gives you fast performance, it automatically parallelizes queries, and it lets you process data in place in the formats that you already have. Kinesis is a family of services that help you to work with real-time streaming data. The first member of this family is Amazon Kinesis Streams. This is designed for technical developers that are going to be building applications that use the Kinesis APIs. Helps you to build applications that collect and stream data. The data comes in at potentially high volume. You capture that data, and you can then replay those streams. You can process the data in real time as it arrives. At a slightly higher level, we have Kinesis Firehose, designed for a slightly different developer type than maybe would be using Kinesis Streams, and also for data scientists. There are command line interfaces to Kinesis Firehose. It makes it very easy and straightforward to put massive amounts of data into S3, into Redshift, or into Elasticsearch. Once you have this data streaming in, the next step is you'd like to analyze it. So Kinesis Analytics allows you to take these streams and write SQL queries that run continuously against the streams. With all this data moving here and there and everywhere, you might want to think in terms of ways to coordinate and orchestrate the motion, and that's the province of the data pipeline. So data pipeline helps you to move data between different data and compute resources, gives you the ability to transform data in the transformation process, and also plugs into any on-premises data sources that you might have. QuickSight is a visual tool that lets you explore your data, connects to multiple different AWS data sources from Redshift and RDS and S3 and Athena. Also pulls data in from third-party locations, from Excel, from Salesforce, from your existing on-premises database. Once you connect a data source to QuickSight, it's going to inspect that data, and it's going to automatically generate some visualizations using something that we call AutoGraph. The autograph gives you a smart visualization that is intended to be a high quality first look at the best way to look at your data. Once you have the visualizations tuned to the way you like them, you can collaborate, you can share them, you can publish them. Elasticsearch is an open source tool that a lot of our customers are using to process high volumes of data. In many cases, they're processing log data. Search service is a way to run and scale Elasticsearch clusters on AWS. It supports the ELK stack, which is the combination of Elasticsearch, Logstash, and then Kibana for visualization. And then this service plugs into CloudWatch logs and to DynamoDB. And you can also build applications that make direct reference to the Elasticsearch API. All right, next I'd like to know which analytics service you're interested in trying next. Let me share those out. Looks like we've got Kinesis in the lead, followed by QuickSight and Elasticsearch. And then Athena close behind that. Wonderful, thank you. One of the newest places that we've been launching new services is in the field of AI, or artificial intelligence. Our aim is to bring powerful artificial intelligence tools to all developers. And the spectrum runs from MXNet to Poly to Recognition to Lex. We have various types of machine learning tools. So machine learning helps you to build smart applications both quickly and easily. This is a fully managed service that allows you to create machine learning models without having to learn a lot about the underlying machine learning algorithms or technologies. Plugs into all the different AWS data tools I've talked about earlier, helps to find patterns in your data, and it does both batch and real-time predictions. Okay, let's actually back up a tiny bit and talk a little bit more about a few of these other AI services. Poly is a text-to-speech service. It turns text into lifelike speech and is powered by deep learning. Recognition is an image analysis service. It is, again, powered by deep learning. Lets you search, verify, and organize millions of images. And then Lex makes use of both the speech synthesis and the speech recognition, which we call automatic speech recognition, and then NLU, natural language understanding. So that's both on the input side. Lex lets you create conversational interfaces for applications, which people call chatbots. And this is the same technology that powers the Amazon Alexa service. So let's talk, let me know next which of the AI services you're interested in trying. Okay, we've got machine learning and Lex definitely in the lead here. We go ahead and share those. Yes, machine learning definitely the winner here. Okay, thank you so much. The Internet of Things is another up-and-coming field where our customers would like to connect devices to the cloud. So the AWS IoT service simplifies this area. It allows you to connect, communicate, and then manage all these devices, designed to scale to billions of devices, and it handles the all-important aspects of both authentication and encryption. Offers offline support. Let's wrap up by talking quickly about three of our enterprise applications, Workspaces, WorkDocs, and WorkMail. Workspaces allows you to create virtual desktops in the cloud. This plugs into other services, including the VPC and the directory service. With Workspaces, there are multiple clients for Windows and Mac, for Chromebook, for iPad, for the Kindle Fire, and for the Android. The idea is that there are enough different kinds of clients, you should be able to access your cloud-based desktop from essentially any kind of device from anywhere. WorkDocs is a storage and sharing service designed for enterprise-level document storage. We use WorkDocs extensively here to both store documents and to pass them around on a controlled basis for review and for feedback. WorkDocs plugs into your corporate directory, integrates with for file syncing with your desktop, with your laptop, with your tablet, and also with your workspaces. And then Workmail is a secure email and calendaring service, business-grade email and calendaring with encryption and enterprise-grade security, compatible with Outlook clients, and accessible from anywhere. On the game development side, we have Lumberyard and Amazon GameLift. Lumberyard is a cross-platform 3D game engine. So you build a game with the Lumberyard APIs. And then GameLift is a deployment and scaling environment that if you build an online game, helps you to very efficiently and economically scale that game as your user base grows very, very quickly. You can create high-quality games within the Lumberyard APIs. You can easily connect to AWS. There's also a set of APIs that allow you to engage and connect with fans on Twitch. We've covered quite a bit of ground here, and you might be just a little bit dizzy with all the things we've put in front of you today. There is a Getting Started Resource Center that gives you a set of tutorials. You can see there's 8 different tutorials to help you dive in and get things to happen within the space of 10 minutes or so. URL's right there at the bottom of the screen. Again, don't forget about the AWS free tier that allows you to access a number of these.